That down. Welcome into a DFS strategy video. My name is Eric, and here at SweetSpotDFS, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. We went over a preview video yesterday where we went over all the stats that I think were important to build your lineups around. That meant looking at the bucket system. So I put a ton of videos out there for you. One just strictly of the bucket system, but you can watch the preview video. It's 2 hours long, pretty much 2 hours long. But that is available to you guys. So if that's something that interests you, go check it out. We're going to use all that information in this video. We're going to look at the SweetSpot ranks as well as the scores that go behind them. Look at the Marquee Tee times, although golfers are they're in pairings of 2. So that makes Marquee Tee times a little difficult. I'll bring that up. I'll talk about that here shortly once we get to there. But let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to start with some giveaways. If you didn't already know, I like to reward those that participate on the channel. So if you're interested, there's a weekly giveaway that I do that I give $5 away. You got to be subscribed. You got to comment down below on any of my videos. So all of the videos that I actually put out, you get 1 free entry per video that you comment on. That goes towards the entries for the giveaway. So I'll run the weekly giveaway in next week's preview video for this week. So go ahead, comment on all of the videos that I've already put out. You'll get 1 free entry per video there. Then you might have a chance to win $5. Those entries will also go towards the monthly giveaway that if we reach the goal all the way over there that you can see, 500 subscribers is the goal. If we can get that by the end of the month, I'm going to give away $50. If not, I'm going to give a t-shirt away that has this logo on it just to, again, reward those that participate on the channel. So hopefully, if you're not already subscribed, you hit that subscribe button down below and participate on the channel. Comment on any of the videos. If you need topics, give me your favorite golfers that you're going to build your lineups around. I think that's an easy way to do it. If you have anything that you might disagree with me on, feel free to leave that in the comment section. I'm very engaging with my audience, with the viewers. So let me know. And just case in point here. Hi, Joanne. How's it going? Hit the like button, people. Thank you. Yes, please hit the like button. That'd be great. All right. Moving on to the next giveaway. Although this isn't so much a giveaway. This is more of like a, it's not a refund. What would you, a rebate. That's pretty much what it is. If you sign up on PrizePicks using the promo code SweetSpot, there's a link in the description below that'll get you straight to the sign up page, by the way, and it'll already populate that promo code in there. That way you don't have to do anything. But you go to that link, type in, if you go to the sign up page and you type in SweetSpot, put $20 in your account after signing up. I'm going to give you your $20 back. Plus, PrizePicks will match your deposit up to $100. So that 20 turns into 40. And it really only costs you that initial sign-up information as well as that initial deposit. So highly encourage you guys to go check that out. Again, link in the description below. Of course, I do provide a cheat sheet for you guys. So let me go ahead and put that on the screen. Oh, not my emails. Someone's already in the cheat sheet. Good to know. But you can go to this cheat sheet. All I ask is go up to the file menu, make a copy once you visit this. Once you do that, you're able to use all the filters that I provide. I have a filter per page, so you can see on this dream sheet portion of it, there's a filter, DraftKings. Go use that as I go throughout this video. It'll help you out if you're following along, especially if you're not here live asking questions. And then with the bucket system, I also have a filter for that. So again, once you click that link in the description below, I get you to this cheat sheet. Go to file, make a copy. That way it's yours. That way you can use the filters that I like to use. I also am going to provide an optimizer, which I'll be using throughout this video. I'm going to be using this to build lineups using the bucket system, using all of the criteria that I like to do when building lineups. So this is all available to you as well. If you would like this, again, all you gotta do is be subscribed, comment down below, or participate on the channel, and then email me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com. and I will send you this optimizer. So that takes care of all of the giveaways. Kind of stumbled throughout most of that, but that is fine. There's a lot of moving parts right now that if my Stream Deck was working properly, we wouldn't have any issues. But that is out of my control right now. Let's go ahead. Let's get in this thing. Let's start talking, or let's start this strategy video out with the SweetSpot ranks and scores. So if you're on that cheat sheet, again, file, make a copy, put on that DraftKings filter, and then you can go ahead and filter down in the SS rank to show you who my #1 golfer is, or basically just my top golfers. Patrick Cantlay is my #1 golfer. Jon Rahm is second, followed by Scottie Scheffler, Tony Finau, Brian Harman, so on and so forth. You see all the names. Now, I want to share what goes into into those scores because, in case you're wondering, I want to be as transparent with you as possible. So, we're looking at the OWGR points. This is really just a way to separate the top end guys from the lower end guys. You're going to want some of these in your lineup anyways, so why not give them a little bit of a boost? Especially when, if a rookie's coming on tour and they have really good recent form stats and those are the only stats that we have, I'd like something to kind of push the better golfers who are more established a little bit more. And you can see it's not a huge point difference between like Cantlay 98.6. Well, I should say this. Scottie Scheffler, #2 in the world, he doesn't have a huge advantage over Patrick Cantlay, just 1 point. But if we were to scroll down into the 6K range, like, Ben Martin, he has 0 OWGR points for him. And I would want that type of gap between him and, say, Scottie Scheffler. So it's not a huge one, but there is one. I like to include it because it just seems to, it seems to be consistent. Like my rankings are pretty good week in and week out. I am looking at 2 types of grass stats. One is bent grass, which I put out a YouTube short. I also put this in my tournament and course information portion of the preview. If you don't have ryegrass, my second grass that I think you guys should look into is bent grass. I think that's the way to do it. If you don't have either of those grasses to look at, probably don't look at any grass stats, honestly. Because it's not Bermuda. I used to live out here, by the way, if you were unaware. Used to live out here. I've golfed on these golf courses. I know how they play. The rough is very similar to Minnesota golf. Not the rough, the fairways. The fairways are very similar to Minnesota fairways. The greens are very similar to Minnesota greens. That's because in the wintertime, they overseed. And you saw that yesterday in the preview video when I went over the course and tournament information. It's too cold for the Bermuda to grow out there. Will there be some Bermuda that can survive? Sure. Like, I'm not going to disagree with that, but it's very minimal. You're going to see that yellowish brown grass in the rough. One of my friends' caddies out there, he sent me a couple videos of him walking around the golf course. I haven't seen it more yellow ever. Like sometimes you see little green patches of grass here and there. That's kind of the Bermuda kind of sprouting through. Like it's warm enough for some of the grass to grow. Maybe there's some, hey, sometimes overseed can spill into the rough and then you have those green patches there because of that. But if you've never actually hit off of dormant Bermuda, it's very brittle grass. The ball usually lays on top of it. You can get flyer lies pretty darn easy. It's the easiest grass to hit out of. There's like no resistance. So that's why I don't look at Bermuda stats whatsoever. They're not going to be on the greens. They're not going to be around the green. Just don't look at Bermuda. And it is overseeded with POA, but it's such a brief season to have the POA on there that it doesn't really quite, quote unquote, bud. Like that's what you normally hear with POA is, the flowering process of the grass creates these buds that make the greens a little uneven. They make it a little bumpy. That's why I personally I wouldn't look at POA. These greens are going to roll pretty straight, pretty true. In my opinion, it's ryegrass all the way. Ryegrass is also known to be a little stickier than bentgrass, so that's the only thing that I would distinguish differences between the two. So I would use ryegrass, just like I said in the video. If not, then use bentgrass. Anyways, that's grass number 1. I went on a little tirade there. Grass 1 would be your bentgrass because I don't have ryegrass. Grass 2 is just Pete Dye. I'm looking at Pete Dye stats. This is pretty watered down, so it's not like, you know, golfers who have a really good advantage on Pete Dye golf courses are getting that big of a bump. But I do want to add that just to add a little bit of an advantage to those that are good at Pete Dye golf courses. We're looking at tournament history. I know yesterday in the preview video, I forgot to mention this. I call them course history buckets. So when I talk about the bucket system, I kept saying course history buckets. They're tournament history buckets. I still want to use that because this tournament is unique. And if you play here enough with the Pro-Am and stuff like that, I definitely want to give you a boost for those that do play well at this tournament, dating back, you know, the last several years. So I'm still going to use tournament history in my scoring. Obviously, that's what I did here, and that's how I got my ranks. Then we're looking at season-long, bogey avoidance, birdie or better, driving distance. The further you hit the ball, you're just going to have better possibilities of scoring, better scoring possibilities. Not if you're erratic. I understand that. Like if you're not accurate, yeah, you won't have those advantages. But I still want to see driving distance because if that is high, more likely you have enough power to have shorter irons into the greens. Shorter irons are more accurate. So that's why I like looking at driving distance. And we're looking at recent form averages for DraftKings points, their finishing position, as well as their scoring average. This goes to the last 7 weeks. We've really only had like 2 other weeks of PGA Tour events. So if you wanted to on your cheat sheet, again, link in the description below for that cheat sheet. If you wanted to remove this, all you got to do is select over these and hit delete. Now, the ranking won't be updated because I don't have a formula in here. It gets really wonky when you put filters on there, but the score over here will be updated. So if you really wanted to, it's going to take a little work on your end. You could either put a ranking formula in here to go off the score here, or if you wanted to, when you put that filter on, I don't know, can you see on the spreadsheet? No, you can't. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. What you could do is the filter has this range right here. You could change this range from EB over to ED, as in dog, as in delta. And that would cover the score. And then you could filter by this. And then basically just type in a 1, a 2, and then this little box down here, click and drag this all the way down to the bottom. And that'll update. Basically, it's a rough version of what you should do with the ranking system, but you could do that if you wanted to. I'm going to keep those recent form stats in there because they're already watered down. Some of the golfers aren't getting that huge of a bump. You can see most of these guys have 40s for their DK average points, then 30. We scroll down, some of these guys are going to have 20s, even if they like didn't even play. So it's not a huge bonus, but I definitely want to give a bonus to those that have played recently. So if you don't agree with that, just delete those. It's fine. Delete these columns. Outside of the recent form stats, then I'm looking at season-long stats. These are my stats that I've recorded for the last year. So we're looking at DraftKings points, their scoring average, rounds under 70%, cut made percentage, DK top 10. This is based off of the field, this current field. Who's the best or who's the best in these stats? Get 100 points, and then it kind of scales down from there. So these are more kind of static points that I give when golfers get to certain thresholds. This is based off of who's the best in each of these categories, and then it's scaled down based off of how far away they are from those players, from the best players. So hopefully that gives a little idea of how the score is made. And again, my number 1 guy, Patrick Cantlay, followed by John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Brian Harmon. You can see these these names. Pretty much follows the salary ranks by DraftKings. You know, if you want to call it the salary leaderboard, you can kind of see some of the discrepancies that I have. Like Tom Kim and Sam Burns. I mean, Burns is really close. Don't get me wrong, but he's number 9 in the salary ranks. He's number 10 in my rankings. So Sam Burns is right where he should be. Tom Kim might be a little bit off, just a little bit. I don't think it's a big deal, honestly. But if that is enough for you to throw you off, then so be it. Brian Harmon, by the way. Harmon is ranking out really well. I think that's a pretty good value play. And then our winner last week, Siwoo Kim. The sweet spot rankings kind of not doing him any justice. And that's fine. I don't think... Like, Siwoo is a really good golfer, don't get me wrong. And I'm not going to make the same mistake I made last week. I was telling a lot of people in the comments of my videos, like, I deselected him so many times in my optimizer. Because my optimizer will just pick a guy at random, as long as my exposure levels are, you know, set for him, which they were. He just kept popping up. I'm like, no, I don't trust Siwoo. Don't want to play Siwoo. Don't want to play Siwoo. And he was actually a pretty decent price tag last week. And last week was, what, he was $8,200 last week. That was a weaker field than this week, and he's $1,000 more. So it kind of stinks missing out on him. Probably should have played him last week. I'm not going to shy away from playing him this week. Hey, golfers get on heaters, so I don't see there being an issue with playing Siwoo. Let me check with chat here. Joanne, thank you. Smart move on the grass. I think it's smart. I mean, I went to school for golf course management, which included agronomy classes. I think bent and ryegrass, pretty similar. You could use those two stats pretty interchangeably. And Barry R, yes, let's go. All right, Cam Young's number 9. I'm not going to go through all the rankings. I just want to show you. I mean, what I typically like to do is sort by the rankings and kind of see some golfers who might be misplaced. Like Siwoo, number 18. He's pretty far. I mean, there's Tom Hoagie that ranks better than him. JT Poston at $8,000. That's a pretty good value. He's ranking out better than Siwoo Kim. You know, Sahith Theegala might be a little overpriced. It's very volatile. I do like Sahith this week. And then the rest of these guys, Taylor Montgomery might be a little overpriced, but I do like Montgomery. But yeah, look at a lot of these 7K golfers compared to the 8K, 9K golfers around them, and kind of just see the different values. I'm not going to put a huge emphasis in this. I want you to know, though, that these rankings, really it's the score for these golfers goes into the optimizer. So you can see those metrics. This is your sweet spot score. And obviously the sweet spot score then goes into the ranking. So I will be using this. Now, if you wanted this optimizer, it's easy for you to go in here and change the values to whatever you want it. Like if you don't like Scotty Scheffler, you could put 0 points. If you like John Rahm, you could put 1,500. I would say this, if you do that, just go in here, copy all this, paste it somewhere else. Like I do that with a lot of these things. Like my bucket system information. Sometimes if there are minimums that I don't care to choose, I'll copy them from here and paste them in an open column. So if you wanted to, you know, not lose what these metrics are, you can do that. Otherwise, I don't know. Did I actually? I don't think I did. Yeah, I didn't save the dream sheet yet. I will do that before sending it. But the dream sheet, there'll be a tab on this optimizer that will look just like what I was showing you. Will look just like this. And all the way over to the right will be the score. So you could actually update that if you wanted to. You could go from the dream sheet tab to the optimizer and save those values back in here. But hit the back button a couple times and just keep the metrics as they are. Yeah, Theegala, I don't mind Theegala this week. I think it's a pretty good play. I like the volatility that comes with him this week. I think it's a perfect play. All right, so those were your ranks and your scores. Again, like I was saying, the score goes into the optimizer, which we will be building lineups with later on. for anyone that's new, that's coming, that's come into this stream. Think about some combos of golfers that you want to see lineups. I'll bounce them against the optimizer, which includes the bucket system information. So keep those towards the end. Most of this video is going to be building lineups. I think last week it was 2 hours long. Like, we had pretty good engagement with the audience, or I should say with chat. They were asking a bunch of questions about, you know, what types of lineups to go. So if we have that type of engagement here, I don't mind sitting on here for, you know, however long you guys would like me to, and we can go through a bunch of different lineup combinations, because there are hundreds of thousands. Actually, there's, I think, 100 trillion different combination of lineups we could make with all the golfers in the field. So it's not like if I go over a bunch of these, because this is the funny thing. There are some people in this DFS realm that do not like building lineups on stream because everyone copies it and puts it into, you know, DraftKings. The collusion just doesn't make it genuine, doesn't make it authentic, and that kind of stuff. Well, hey, how many people are watching right now? 6? I don't think. I mean, by the end of the week, I might have 100 viewers on this stream. So I really don't think 100 people copying the same lineups is really going to do anything. So feel free to give me some lineup combos, and I will build them here a little bit later. Okay. Now that we're done with the scores and the ranks, this goes into our Marquee Tee times. Like I said early on in the video, hard to do Marquee Tee times this week. I didn't even color code them. I certainly will right now, though. Let's do that, and then really the last two are kind of like, what do I usually call them? Honorary mentions, I guess. But it's every 2 groups. Now, the top 2 groups, Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, that group with Scotty Scheffler and Tony Finau, their rankings together equaled the same amount as the other group. So you can see the SS rank, that's how I figure out what are my top groups. So Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, their score equals 7 together, or the rank equals 7 together. Scheffler and Finau also equals 7. So the rankings together, I could probably do it by score. I'd imagine. Well, actually, I don't know. I could do score, but I don't think it really matters. We're just like, that'd be going a little too deep. I don't know what to do with the Marquee Tee times this week. I don't even know if we should follow them. I don't have them actually in the optimizer right now. I do. Let me explain what I'm talking about. So I do have those numbers here in the group. This is your Marquee Tee time groupings. Anything that has a number is part of the grouping. The golfers that don't have numbers there, they're not a part of any Marquee Tee time. This I use for the optimizer to select golfers from my Marquee Tee times. I have the minimum set to 0. I have the max set to 2. And then this little section down here is what the optimizer will look at and make sure, like if I had the minimum set at 2, it will make sure I grab 2 golfers that are in the Marquee Tee times. I usually do that every single week. This is always set to 2, and I really never have the max more than 4. But I'm going to keep it open this week because I didn't see anything from the previous years. Anything that has like a dark green over here. So this is 2022 that I'm looking at. Anything that has a dark green is considered the Marquee Tee time. So I have a few of these, and let me just let's just go ahead and put a filter on this. Sort by game, and then I gotta bring it out by color because I didn't know how to do this last year to do my Marquee Tee times. See, how many did I actually have? I had a total of 24 Marquee Tee times, and that actually makes sense because I usually have 9 groups. 9 groups have 3 golfers in them. That would be 27. I can't do that on the optimizer though. The optimizer will only give me 9 groups because it's limited with the amount of arguments that you make in it, so I can't do that. We had 1 golfer in the optimal lineup from last year's Marquee Tee times, but there were 3 golfers in the GPP winning lineup. That's what this little blue color is. Indicates your GPP winning lineup. So yeah, I don't know what to do with Marquee Tee times this week. I guess if we follow last year's, I would have to it'd be these groups right here, would be the Marquee Tee times, grabbing 3 more groups to make it 12 total groups. We only had one in the optimal lineup last year. I could see having a few more in the optimal lineup, but I don't know. I think we just leave it open. I think we're already going to mix and match a bunch of these golfers here at the top. They're our best golfers in the field, so I really don't. I don't see I don't see it being necessary to do Marquee Tee times this week. I'll keep them like this just to, in the review video, see if anybody shows up, but I'm not going to use Marquee Tee times. So kind of went through that, wasting your time. It's fine, right? It's fine. Can't say I really wasted your time. I just showed you what the Marquee Tee times were. I'm not going to use them in lineup building. Now, the last thing that I want to look at are the anchor buckets. So again, if you're following along with me, or I should say this, if you want to follow along with me, go ahead, check the link in the description below. That's where the cheat sheet is available. Once you go to that link, once you visit that page, go down to make a copy. That way you can use the filters that I will be using on this spreadsheet and filter out the same way that I do. Because when it comes to the anchor buckets, what I like to do, I already have this set up, is in this max projection, once you put the filter on, click into the max projection filter, go to filter by conditional, and go greater than or equal to 2. Because greater than or equal to 2 means the minimum is at least 1. And when the minimum is at least 1, we want to select a golfer from that bucket. The second piece of this, I just selected anything under 25, but if I were to open this up to everything, you can see we do have more buckets that we could look at, but some of these buckets have 67 golfers in it, 53, 46, 41. That's a bit of an eyesore. That's difficult to figure out which golfers we like from those. So the whole purpose of the anchor buckets is to pick out 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 golfers from there, use those as our core and build lineups that way. So that's the whole purpose of the anchor buckets. When there are 67 golfers in a bucket, it is very difficult to select, 1, 2, or 3. Maybe you want, 7, 8, 9 of those golfers in your player pool. I wouldn't have an issue with that. Because again, the optimizer, what it's going to do, it's already going to look at this bucket and select the best combination of golfers to go with whomever you're going to anchor around. So, and you can mess around with the optimizer to have it select certain players. I mean, you can change the metric in here to 0. You could literally remove these golfers if you wanted to. Like if you didn't want Aaron Rai at all and you just wanted a pool of golfers, you can do that. And then it will select golfers who are available. It doesn't matter if this is, golfers are after. You can do whatever you want. I could literally do something like this. It's not going to break the optimizer. Well, you would want to remove the metrics. But you could do that and build lineups and it will be just fine. The optimizer can withstand that kind of stuff. So that's one way to remove golfers from your quote unquote pool. You can also really enhance this. So let's say you really liked Adam Hadwin this week. Well, I could bump his score up to 5 or 50,000. How about that? That way the optimizer will always select Adam Hadwin. You could do that. And that's kind of a way you can trick this optimizer into selecting golfers from your pool. Now, if it doesn't match with the buckets, it won't choose that golfer. And I would say this too. If this score is super high, then it's obviously going to prioritize that golfer to put in your lineups. And then it's going to build around that. So anyways, you can do that. You can trick the optimizer in doing that. So that's why I'm not going to look at golfers or buckets that have more than 30 golfers in it or 25 golfers in it. That's why I would rather clear everything. This list isn't that large, so it's not like you have to really scroll through and select or deselect a bunch of these. You can just do this manually pretty easily. If you didn't want to do it manually, you could go in here and filter by condition and do less than or equal to whatever number you're comfortable with. Mine would be 25. I would just go less than or equal to 25. Probably select all, and it's still going to keep everything right there. So you could do that if you wanted to. Okay. Let's get in these anchor buckets. First one, we're going to look at last year ones. I talked about this in the preview video. There are a lot of good golfers here. I shouldn't say there isn't a lot, or there aren't a lot of golfers, but the golfers that are in this bucket, a lot of them are good. Rahm, Cantlay, Sungjae, Will Zalatoris, Brian Harmon, our winner from last week, Siwoo Kim, Andrew Putnam, Tom Hoge, Wyndham Clark, a lot of good names. Now, if you're with me in the preview video, remember I said you want somewhere between 1 to 3. Bucket system is pretty successful when projecting how many golfers from a bucket will finish inside the top 10. 1 to 3 is a good projection. You wanted to go a little bit more than that, I'm not going to fault you for that. You can certainly do that. You can test out the bucket system, see who's right, whether it's you, whether it's the bucket system. But one thing I would advocate against is grabbing 5 or 6 golfers from this bucket. This is kind of why I like the bucket system, because if you say you could have a very well-rounded lineup. Will Zalatoris at 9,600. Drop down to, let's just put Brian Harmon in there, Tom Hoge, Denny McCarthy, and Lee Hodges. I just picked 5 golfers. I have $7,500 to work with. We can build lineups like this. Bucket system will tell you don't do that. And I've never seen it so wrong where if I'm projecting 1 to 3, we see 5 in that bucket. It's just not going to happen. So it's a great way to curb the type of the certain golfers you want. And one of the great things I like about, figuring out your anchors. Well, first of all, don't pretend you don't already have favorites. If you take that whole roster of golfers, the whole field of golfers, and you like Jon Rahm, you like Scotty Scheffler, or how about this? You don't want to play Rahm, you don't want to play Scheffler, but you really like Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, Will Zalatoris. You want to play those guys. Well, when we put this filter on and we select our last year ones, well, we have Cantlay and Zalatoris there already. Maybe you want to build your lineups around those guys, and then just say, maybe I'll let 1, maybe 2, probably just stick with 1 other golfer from the rest of the list to join that lineup, but otherwise fade the rest. I think this is a wonderful way to figure that out. So last year ones, guys in the chat right now, who are you eyeing up? Who do you like? I personally like Patrick Cantlay and Will Zalatoris. Saw a really good Harmon lineup that I'll share with you guys. I don't mind starting Cantlay Harmon. I don't mind starting Cantlay Zalatoris. You really don't mind going to Rahm. I think you could fit 2 10K golfers in if you truly wanted to. So I think you could go Rahm and Cantlay. I won't do that, but I think it's definitely possible this week. Anyways, let me know who you like. I'll move on to the next one. I forgot to change the delay in the stream. I got to figure that one out. Going to the next one. Our next anchor bucket, last year 2s. Again, we want somewhere between 1 to 3. Now, personally, this number is really close. The maximum's really close to being under 2. Which I don't really feel super comfortable with. So again, we're looking at last year 2s. 2.16 is the max projection. I always round up no matter what in the max projection. So 2.16 always gets rounded up to 3 all the time in my eyes. So close to being under 2, especially with that conservative, in the miscellaneous information, this max projection over here takes in my sweet spot scores. 2.03 isn't very confident. And last week we saw 2 of these buckets fail. We had 0 in each of those buckets, which if this was under 2, so let's say it was 1.99, the minimum automatically goes to 0, and this would not be an anchor bucket. So let me go ahead and pull up the last year 2s. I think there's good enough golfers in here that are going to make it worthwhile to play. So we have Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, those golfers by themselves, those 2, definitely worth it. Cameron Young, Sahith Theegala, Adam Hadwin, obviously like Adam Hadwin. We talked about JT Poston in the rankings. He's ranked a little bit better than his salary would indicate. So maybe there's value in playing him. And then we've got a list of other golfers that I'm pretty lukewarm about. Like Christian Bezuidenhout, you know, anytime that I roster him in my lineups, he disappoints me. Like he doesn't make a lot of birdies. He seems like he's really good at harder golf courses where you need to make par. That's where he seems to excel at. He doesn't really seem to excel at birdie type of golf courses, which that's what this might be this week. Now, my buddy that lives out in the desert, he was telling me today that there was a ton of wind. He wasn't really telling me. I just saw in a story that there's a lot of wind. And when it gets windy at the desert, the mountains are the only thing that really protect the wind from really blowing in and messing things up. But if the wind is blowing in the right direction, it gets really windy down there. You see, it's like dust bowls, basically. I don't know if that's something we really need to worry about. I was looking at the forecast after I saw that, and I'm like, well, we're seeing like somewhere between 7 to 10 miles an hour. It's irrelevant to some extent. So I don't know. Probably staying away from that, or staying away from that narrative that the wind is going to be terrible. If that was the case, though, I would probably put Bez in my lineups because he plays better when there's harder conditions. Let's see with chat here. Willie Z for Barry, absolutely. Cantlay, Willie Z, Hoagie, I like that. I mean, you could build a lineup with those three golfers and be just fine. Barry R with the 10 of the last 13 winners. Now, the bucket system is definitely something that tracks performance trends. I'm not sure I care too much about the odds. Like, I would like to know what go into the odds when it comes to Vegas and how they create those odds. I would love to know the algorithm that goes behind it. Okay, that's also a good one. I mean, let's see. What is one of our... I'll get to that, Barry R. I'll talk about last week performances. But I'm going to finish up with the last year 2 buckets. Now, again, the max projection of this was pretty close to under 2. And when that's the case, then there's no certainty at least one golfer from this bucket will be inside the top 10. But with the golfers we see, Scheffler, Finau, Cameron Young, Theegala, even Hadwin. We haven't seen him playing forever, but this is a golf course he does really well at. And I like JT Poston as well. Patrick Rogers I like quite a bit. Alex Smalley. Those are great players to also put in your rosters. So I do think we see at least one. I'm not going to... The thumbnail of this video is Scheffler and Finau. And I think it's probably the smartest to start lineups that way. I think a lot of people will gravitate towards Cantlay. I do like Cantlay a lot this week. Well, first of all, while I continue talking about this, how about you guys let me know who are your favorite, like, tell me which golfers that you would want to play from this bucket. Actually, no. If you're going to anchor around any guys here, tell me 1 to 3 golfers that you would anchor from this bucket. But going on what I was, continuing on what I was talking about, Scheffler and Finau, I think they're relatively safe. Like, I don't think Scheffler misses the cut here. And again, we don't really have to worry about the cut because it's a 54-hole cut. Scoring is going to matter more. I like Scheffler's ability to make birdies here. The greens aren't super tricky. So, like a Finau, you could probably feel a little comfortable playing. I still kind of have, I don't know if I'd call it worries, but I'm not sure I really care to play Tony Finau this week. I think I would rather stay around Scheffler, Cameron Young, sprinkle in some Theegala, maybe a little Hadwin, Poston. Like, I don't mind playing golfers like that, but I'm probably going to stay away from Tony Finau. I like Scotty Scheffler. And at 10,500, it would be hard for me to play someone like Patrick Cantlay to go with him. So in the last bucket that we were talking about, I could see myself starting with like Scheffler and Zalatoris and going from there. Yeah, Scotty this week, pretty great. Ooh, you like Rahm next week? Hey, I don't mind that either. That's a good play, Barry. Like that. All right, moving on to the next one. So now, let me take out the bucket totals. I wonder, because we have no last week buckets. When I open this up, the only real bucket that is for certain are golfers who didn't play last week. So Barry, I don't know what we're talking about when it comes to that trend of playing the week before. We have some decent frequencies that come from these buckets, and obviously, you know, the differences between them, they could intertwine. How about this? Let's go into the buckets and use our top 5. But so I keep track not only of top 10 finishers, I keep track of top 5 finishers from each of these buckets. And basically what I'm looking at are these top 5 buckets. So these are all numbered weird. I mean, I could just do this right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So looking at these buckets right here, is there a year where we see 0 in all of them? No, there aren't. So yeah, playing the week before is not terrible, but this doesn't really help us because each of these buckets you see zeros quite a bit in. So trying to figure out which golfer played last week, or, you know, what their performance is, and applying it to this week, probably a bit challenging. You can see having a top 20 the week before kind of pittered out, or, you know, stopped really happening in the last 5 years. So someone who top 20 last week probably don't play, but then of course we've seen it happen. What I could do is compare it to how many golfers are in those buckets each year. So I can hide this. And so we want to be looking at this compared to this. So yeah, we kind of see like a little downtick in numbers in 2018 and on, where it's like 15, 14, 12, 10, 10, 15, whereas we normally see 20, 16, 19, 20, 19. And it kind of follows along with how many we've seen inside the top 10 from that bucket. I'm not going to do a full analysis as to, you know, well, I guess what we could also do is you see an uptick in numbers here. You also see an uptick numbers here. So let's use that and maybe figure out what we can expect. We have more golfers in the last week 5 bucket, which is a missed cut from the Sony Open. We have more here than we typically do on average. Everything else is pretty much on par with how many we see on average. So if there was a bucket to really kind of focus on, if you wanted to, missing the cut last week at the Sony might, you know, because the number's larger, it might be the bucket you want to be picking golfers from. But there's definitely no certainty with any of these buckets. And I guess how I look at that, if we go back here, remember we're looking at top 5s in that last week bucket. What do we see? No more than 4. Well, here's 5. No more than 5 from anyone who played last year or last week. And really, if you take out missed cuts, we have 2, 3, 2, 2, 0, 2, 3, 1, 4, and we have 4 there as well. So probably limit the amount of lineups, or when you create lineups, limit how many golfers played last week to about 3. So probably don't play more than 3 that were in the Sony Open, which is kind of interesting because, I mean, you could do this also to some extent if you were to use the optimizer. I have 2 set up for the last week buckets, so no more than 2. What I could do is do this, put 3 that did not, or like I'm telling the optimizer to at least select 3 who didn't play last week. Remember the last week 6, any 6 buckets basically the absence of stats. So it really tells you they didn't play last year, they didn't play last week, they have no course history, they have no recent form, they don't have any strokes gained stats. That's kind of what bucket 6 refers to. So golfers who didn't play last week, I want the optimizer to select at least 3. I don't want it to select more than 3. So I think thank you for bringing that up, Barry. That was great. Hey, by the way, I think you were in chat last week, and you were the one that bring up Maverick McNeely, which got me to look into Taylor Montgomery and comparing the two. you got me on to Taylor Montgomery. Not that it was very difficult because I really like Taylor Montgomery, but for most of that tournament, Montgomery was looking like the best 9K golfer you should have played, and he might have been. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think maybe Corey Connors was a little bit better. I think Corey Connors was $9,600, but hey, I think you might have helped all of us kind of limit the amount of golfers we're going to play in last week's tournament. So thank you once again. All right, let's move on. Let's get back into the anchor buckets. That was fun to kind of derail from there. We'll put a condition back on this, greater than or equal to 2. And of course, you know, you could put a condition on this, but I'm just going to go ahead and just select any bucket under 25. So we have no last week buckets. Course history 2 is the next bucket we want to select. This one's a pretty healthy projection, 1.5 to 2.5. Again, that's 1 to 3, how I read it. So looking at course history 2 golfers. We have Scotty Scheffler. We have Patrick Cantlay. Burns, Harmon, Siwoo. Like, to me, it's almost evident that we want to start with Scotty Scheffler or Patrick Cantlay. And for me, I think I'm going to start with Scotty Scheffler and go from there. Because it opens up more lineup possibilities for me. Like, I don't mind Cantlay and say like Brian Harmon together. But it feels better kind of thinking about building a Scotty Scheffler, starting with Scotty Scheffler and going to a different golfer. Now, I will say this, as I talk about this in the strategy video, I mean, almost every year that I do this, every week that I do this, I should say, with the strategy videos, I will tell you a certain combo of players that I like. And of course, outside of doing this live, because when I do this live, I build a lot of lineups with you guys. But prior to doing this live, I would give you my top like 10 lineups that I would build. Well, then Wednesday night comes around, I'll start building lineups, and it's not working the way I really want it to. It doesn't look great. So then I'll change my combos. And it's not me trying to deceive you. It's just like, you know, in a Tuesday night when I'm creating these strategy videos, I can only do so much like lineup building, so much theory crafting, that when it comes down to me actually building out 100 lineups, I realize the 2 guys that I wanted to build lineups around just don't work. It doesn't work the way that I want it to. I don't like it how it works with the buckets. So then I pivot away from that, and I find a different combo that I like building lineups around. And especially if I'm just messing around with this and I go, well, let's see what some Scotty Scheffler, Brian Harmon lineups look like. And I start building those out. I'm like, oh my God, I like these lineups. Or perhaps it will kind of tell me like, nope, we can't build lineups with those guys. So, try again. But like this lineup right here. Scotty Scheffler, Brian Harmon, Adam Hadwin, Thomas Dietrich, Will Gordon, Ben Taylor. That's a really good lineup. And if I continue just hitting this run optimize button, we're going to see more and more good lineups. I don't really care for Brendan Todd, but hey, that's not a terrible lineup. We'll get more into this here a little bit later. So I guess for you guys, which 1, 2, or 3 golfers that you want to build your lineups around in the course history 2 bucket? Salaries are telling us we want to play 110K golfer. I'm not going to go into that bucket. Strokes gain 1 and strokes gain 2. So strokes gain 2 is just like the last year 2 bucket, where our max projection when we pull in the SweetSpot ranks almost under 2, which doesn't leave me with high confidence in selecting at least 1 golfer from these buckets. But when we go into these strokes gain bucket, or just remember what the totals were. So strokes gain 2, maybe you want 1 golfer, maybe we want to anchor on 1 golfer. We're going to leave that open though. We'll talk about it, but we'll leave it open. Strokes gain 1, we want somewhere between 2 to 5. 2 to 5 obviously are, when we pull in the SweetSpot ranks, 4 is really kind of the conservative maximum that we want. So open this up to everybody, go to strokes gain 1. And it's a bunch of great golfers. I mean, this is all color coded, by the way, based off of the strokes gain buckets they're in. So if I were to open this up, if you're following along on the cheat sheet, You know, you go back to the dream sheet, all these golfers that are green are strokes gained 1 golfers. So keep that in mind. But as you see on the screen, I mean, we have 4 10K golfers to select from. I said this when I posted on Twitter that for me, I would want to play a 10K golfer. I did this in the, shoot, I forget which one it was. Maybe I think the bucket system video that I posted on Twitter, I had said, this doesn't tell you want a 10K golfer. I don't know what will, or something to that effect. Like, you want a 10K golfer in your lineup. And I would say it's probably one of these 4. Now, the only one you don't see in there is John Rahm. He's going to be in the next bucket we talk about because he's a strokes gained 2 by a fraction. I'll show you how he's just a strokes gained 2 by a fraction, but he should be a strokes gained 1 golfer, and he's obviously super, super good. All of his stats are really good. His around the green is just slightly negative, and that's what's causing him to be a strokes gained 2 golfer instead of a strokes gained 1. So either way, it seems like you definitely want a 10K golfer in your lineup. I personally like Scotty Scheffler. Well, put it this way. Cantlay and Scheffler are super close. I like them both. But we want 2 to 5 golfers from this. Oh, hold on. Whoa. I say this, and I always phrase it wrong. It's not that you want 2 to 5. I'm projecting 2 to 5 inside the top 10, which 4 of those 5, you know, the max projection is 5. 4 of them could be in the 10K range. You cannot select more than 2. You can only select 2, but more than likely you can only select 1. You know, because if we have nothing but a bunch of 9 and 8K golfers inside the top 10 to go with our 10K golfers, which here historically we haven't seen, but if that was the case, then you can't select 2 to 5 golfers from this bucket. So you really have to look, you kind of have to look into that. You have to be cognizant, be aware of that. So with that being said, if you don't see each one of these 10K golfers finishing inside the top 10, then easily X them out. You know, whatever golfer you don't like, obviously you don't select them. But then that means you can come down here pretty easily and select a few more of these golfers that you want to build your lineups around. So, yeah, Barry, I could see us starting with Scotty and Cantlay pretty easily. Let me just catch up with chat. I think, yeah. So I answered that one from Barry, the last nugget. Oh, no, I didn't. Last nugget. 13 of the last 15 winners played in one previous American Express, and 12 of the last 15 have played the event at least twice. Yeah. It being our course history 2 bucket, I think that we went over probably kind of shows that a little bit. Did you notice that this year's pricing doesn't have an 11K price player? Pricing looks soft. Tell me that a Stars and Scrubs approach this week might be the way to go. 2 10Ks this week? Yeah. So that's where I'm going to get to when it comes to lineup building. I think I said this in the preview as well. Every single year that we've seen a pass optimal lineup, or I should say this, when we looked at pass optimal lineups in the preview video, we saw every single year at least 2 of the following combos. Like, I should say this. You either saw 2 7Ks, or you saw a 7 and a 6K, or you saw 2 6Ks in the optimal lineup. So it's like you want to select 2 of those. You want to select, that combo. You want to follow that combo some way. So, and when I say, 2 7s and a 6, or I should say 2 7s, a 7-6, or 2 6s, a lot of times like a 2 6 kind of went with another 7. Or the 2 7s went with the 6. Not all the time, not always, but every single year we've seen at least 1 7. I should say that. Yeah, I should probably say that. It was at least 1 7. I think that's how the combo went, right? 1 7, 1 6, or 2 7s and a 6, or 1 7 and 2 6s. So 3 of your golfers should be in the 7 and or 6K range. I think that's probably the best way to say. So with that being said, yeah, definitely Stars and Scrubs week is definitely viable this week. I think that's probably the best way. And when you said starting with Scotty and Cantlay, I could see that easily happening. And yeah, I could easily skip the 8K range as well. I think that's easy. Barry R, that one right there, 2 10Ks, an 8, a 7, and 2 6s. Yes, that is definitely viable. I like that idea. Moving on with our strokes gained 1 though, some of these golfers I think are really easy to, you could easily choose. you know, when we talk about skipping the 8K range, we have golfers like Cameron Davis and Sahith Theegala, KH Lee in there. And of course, we were talking about JT Poston. I could easily roster these guys. So skipping the 8K range probably wouldn't be on my radar, but yeah, it's definitely possible. Again, it's just well, I would say first, how does the leaderboard shake up? You know, if any of these guys are above any of these guys inside the top 10, then yeah, you kind of have to skip some of these guys and go here. But if it's the other way around, it really depends on if these 4 golfers up here, if 1, 2, 3 of them finish top 5, you're definitely going to want them. But if they finish like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, you literally could skip them. So it really matters that they're in the top 5. So if you have any doubts, like I do with Xander, I don't like a top 5 finish from him. I also don't like a top 5 finish from Tony. So I'm probably skipping these 2 guys pretty easily. Now, last year, I think Patrick Cantlay was what? He was 9th. But when I created my realistic optimal, which would be the sweet spot optimal, it scored 740 points. 740. Sorry, I was talking a little quick there. The GPP winning lineup scored 670. There's a 70-point gap between the GPP winning lineup and a lineup that included Cantlay in 9th place. So if you're with me talking about if these guys are inside the top 5, don't let it scare you. It's just talking about value when it comes to the rest of the golfers. You know, a 9 or an 8K golfer that's inside the top 10. Put it this way: an 8 or 9K golfer that's somewhere between 5th and 10th place is probably more valuable. And I only say probably because I didn't do the math behind this, than any of these guys finishing 3rd to 7th place. Because this allows you to grab different golfers that might get put into, you know, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. And you might not be able to construct a lineup with these guys in it. Like, put it this way, your optimal might include these guys despite one of these or 2 of these guys being inside the top 10. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. But we don't have to galaxy brain ourselves. If they finish inside the top 10, you're going to have a pretty good chance to winning a GPP or making a decent amount of money. So don't worry about it. Anyways, moving on. The last bucket to talk about, remember this one was really close to not being an anchor bucket, would be your strokes gained 2, which is headed by Jon Rahm. And just to show you why he's a strokes gained 2, these 4 stats right here: off the tee, approach, around the green, putting. All 4 of these need to be positive in order for that golfer to be a strokes gained 1 golfer. If any of the 2 in between, approach or around the green, are negative, they would be a strokes gained 2 golfer if their off the tee is positive and their putting is positive. So you can see by fractions, that would be what, 1/100th of a decimal point separates Jon Rahm from being a strokes gained 1 golfer. So yeah, definitely, if there was a golfer to choose in this bucket, it would be Jon Rahm. But then you also have Taylor Montgomery, Tom Hoge, and a bunch of other good supporting cast that you could put in your lineups. But this is definitely much weaker than the strokes gained 1 bucket we just saw. Significantly weaker. So trying to anchor around one of these golfers, if it's not Rahm, I think you just don't anchor. And I think that's what I would put in the optimizer. I don't know if I actually have that. Let's see, strokes gained 2. Yeah, I left it 0. So this is kind of the minimums that I'm going to post in here. Actually, let me just do that right now, just so I don't confuse any of you. So with the strokes gained 2, I kept it at 0. I did put the max at 3 though, because remember the technical projection, or the actual projection, is somewhere between 1 to 3. But we don't really feel comfortable putting at least 1. So I'm going to keep it open. But with that being said, we are done with the anchor buckets. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.